Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio. Hey, Pam. It's good to see you here at another episode of Sexy Marriage Radio.
Good to be here. I just took this big swallow of coffee and I'm like, oh, could you hear that on the radio?
I don't know. Let us know. Feedback at sexymarriageradio.com, where we're constantly asking for interactions with the nation. And that's one of the ways they can let us know what's going on. That's where we'll be heading today, is an email that came in just recently to our inbox. There's also a voicemail line. 65 is where you can call in and leave your message that we can listen to and then answer on the air, because we want to have a dialogue that helps frame conversations with yourself and your spouse so that you can confront the things that life inevitably is going to throw at you, particularly in your sex life. And that's where we're heading today. And so let's just jump right in, because this is an email from a wife. She says, I've been married for 30 years. My husband and I have had a good sex life with similar desires and lots of orgasms for both of us. So kudos to both of you on that. The past 6 months, I've been unable to orgasm with him. It's been a pretty difficult time, and I've become in an intensely higher desire, feeling like that I need to get off. And since he orgasms every time we have sex and I don't or can't. Last week, I was diagnosed with lichen planus of the vulva, which is probably the cause of my problems with orgasm. And I looked that up. I wasn't sure what that actually was. And that's a chronic inflammatory condition, often associated with an autoimmune issue possibly. And it creates soreness, tightness, itching, pain. And it is treatable with topical, but the length of the treatment is varied on how long before it takes care of everything. So just for that side note with the conversation today. She's about a week and a half into the treatment. The doctor gave no predictions on when or if orgasms would come back. I can actually still orgasm on my own with masturbation. So my question is it wrong or selfish of me to ask my husband to let me masturbate with him alongside on the days after we have sex, after I'm left completely turned on and frustrated without orgasmic relief? So it would be like alternating. Sex together is for us, but for him to orgasm. And then we would focus the next time on just trying to get me there. He's open to it, but I feel embarrassed to have the focus on me. Masturbation has a lot of guilt and weight associated with it for me, and I don't know how to get over that. I'm just wanting some relief together with my husband. Thanks. So obviously we got some scripts going on here. It's just compounded and brought to the forefront via the medical issue that's changed a dynamic. Because that's the one thing that's interesting about life, right? If we figure something out and then something happens and it changes the dynamic. And now I'm having to face more than just the dynamic. I have to face all of the history surrounding my possible scenarios to address that dynamic.
Yeah, I wish she were here, like on a call or something, to ask some questions, because it's interesting that they've been able to, lots of orgasms, she says in her email, throughout their 30 years. And she can't orgasm now except masturbating. So it doesn't sound like this lichen planus that has been diagnosed, ultimately she can orgasm.
Correct.
To keep her from orgasm, wording actually.
So what comes to mind is the reliable way she could reach orgasm while they were having sexual intercourse no longer helps, no longer gets it for her. Which then begs the question of, what are the other patterns in which the ways they've had sexual intercourse? Did they have a variety of ways she could actually achieve climax during intercourse? Or because most humans, we know the reliable way. And maybe there's two or three options.
Couple, yeah.
And so I'm curious, how much has there been a dialogue about looking at our technique and our positions and what we incorporate into our sex life together that has worked? Have we tried all of those and it doesn't work? Or have they gotten into a pattern of, we just know the reliable path and that's what we keep coming back to? Maybe we have a lot of adventure up to it and then we get into the reliable path because we know it gets the job to the goal line. So, I mean, it is interesting because you're picking up on the fact that it's not that she's unable to orgasm. It's just not as reliable in the manner in which she wants it to be, because that's what it's been.
Sure. So you've got I'm making some assumptions that I don't need to make. So I'm not going to go there. I'm just thinking of how long they've been married and where potentially she is in life, potentially menopause, and how the body's changing and all those things anyway. And so those things aren't as reliable anyway.
Right. It's going to happen to all of us. If we're sexual beings, things are going to happen that will make it to where, wait, it didn't work as easy as it did once before.
Yeah, it's time to pivot now and see what else needs to happen. So anyway, I digress on something she didn't even bring up.
That's one thing I want. That's worth at least putting a pin in as far as a point from the episode today. We probably won't come back to it, but it is worth exploring for her and them, as well as anybody else listening that may have any kind of alteration or shift that's happened in their sex life, to explore, okay, what was it that we would normally do that is no longer working versus what else could we be doing to try out and see together? Because then I can maybe get back to, because there are many couples, or some couples for sure, that they reliably can orgasm just through penile vaginal intercourse. They can even do it together. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, we can't do that as easily anymore. What's the problem here?
Sure. So I think that's what she's trying to do here, is pivot in this situation and say to her question, is it okay for me to ask if he'll be there with me as I pleasure myself? And I mean, he could join in along that. So what would your response be?
Absolutely, it's okay to ask. And this is the thing that's interesting to me, is when it comes to our sex lives, it's one of the most intimate, sometimes even closely guarded parts of ourselves. Right? I don't want someone else to know, ooh, I might get off on that thought, or I really get turned on by that. I mean, there's some people that have no problem with this. They'll just share everything, and that's just the way they are. But a lot of people, we have this, I don't want to be seen that way. And so I'm not sure it's okay to even bring it up. I feel like I'm being selfish if I do it, because she even made the comment, if she has a problem, her struggle is the weight of being the center of attention, sexually speaking. So is it okay for her to ask? Yes. It's actually an incredible growth step opportunity for their marriage, and for sure for her, because it lets you speak about what it is that you're looking for, who it is you're trying to become, what it is you really want out of this part of your life, and being willing to just see what it may bring you. Because some husbands, if a wife is to invite this to happen, would jump at that chance.
Well, and the opposite would happen with some of them as well.
And some of them would be like, no, that's on, how dare you do that just for yourself, or how dare you exclude me, or how, because this is the way we all are as humans. We're one or the other most of the time. And masturbation is one of these things that there's very few people in my memory that I've come across where this has been a subject of conversation in the sessions to where they're neutral on it.
They're either one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
This is two sides of a coin, and you're on one side or the other. Typically, there's not a whole lot that are, I'm basically kind of neutral about it, because it's got so much weight associated with the topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guilt and shame and
is it right? Is it wrong?
Right. And
all the things. We've got so
things.
many episodes on it because it comes up a lot.
Yes.
With people that email in, that call in.
Right. Because the majority of our audience has a religious background a lot of the times. And this gets even heavier
in that arena
when you add in that component. And so is it okay? No, it's not selfish to ask that. This is actually, in my opinion, for her, it's responsible. It's being responsible for yourself better. I'm speaking up for what it is I want. Because if he can still get what it is he wants reliably, how's that any different?
Right. I think you got to also take into account when you as Dr. Allen are telling someone, this is likely a good path to take, to not try and hide, to not try and just not bring something up because you're afraid of what the response might be. This is where we talk about intimacy, right? This is where real intimacy comes in. When you're talking about these things that are hard, that may interest you, you've got something that you feel like might be a solution for an issue you've got, and you're wanting to do it together as a couple. I mean, potentially that's an opportunity to create an even more intimate relationship between the two of you.
Yeah, because it presents an opportunity for you to be more exposed within the context of a together. Because if you think about it, there are many couples that if they thought about masturbating, I think of it this way. I've asked this in session, I've asked it in mastermind groups where this has been a subject of part of the content that we're dealing with is masturbation practices. So if you think about it, if you were masturbating during an afternoon and your spouse walked in, what would you do? Would you immediately be all guilt ridden and shamed, or would you be like, "Hey, come on, do you want to join in?" I mean, because you got a whole spectrum.
Or do you just turn and say, I don't want to be that? That's your deal. I'm walking out.
Well, that would be what the spouse would do,
right?
Possibly. Or not.
You as
I'm asking you as the one that's actually in the act of masturbation. What would you do? Because most of us get caught up in this whole. It's a secretive thing. When we first are exposed or exploring this aspect of our sexuality. And I grew up in the world of abuse. I was petrified of getting caught, right? And so it was one of those.
Because it was normally around things that weren't.
Well, there were things associated with it that were not at all helpful, which was porn.
Right. So go back and listen to our episodes where we're talking about this in the history.
But even if it was just this just feels good kind of a thing, I still would be afraid of getting caught over a normal body function. How do you grow to where, all right, there might be a little embarrassment, but am I actually doing anything wrong? And this is the thought process I have to get caught up in my own head when I'm actually trying to explore my sexuality.
Yeah. And for her, is she doing something wrong, or is she just exploring, here's what's going to work, right? Here's how the body is changing, and here's what's going to work for us.
Right.
And maybe he learned something about her body as well.
And that's what the opportunities
where they kind of get back to where they want to be, right? And create something new between them.
And it actually can be an incredibly intimate occasion if you masturbate alongside each other while including each other. And I mean that in the sense of there's an actual presence there with them. Like they may not be manually involved at all, digitally involved at all, or anything like that, but they're just there holding you. That can be an incredibly intimate moment.
Yeah.
And you can look each other in the eye. That's an incredibly intimate moment. And so it's just kind of seeing it as the desire to want to seek pleasure and relief, because that's what she's talking about, that it intensifies her desire when she can't get off in the normal, reliable way. She can't achieve an orgasm in the normal, reliable way.
I hate using the words get off. I'm just saying that just doesn't feel like a connection between a husband and a wife. And I may be crazy here. Email in and give me your feedback, right? You can rip on me for that one. I'm just saying I don't like using that phraseology because it feels like it is just about me wanting to get off.
Well, she's referring to when we frame orgasm in a biological function and how an orgasm produces a relief, a euphoria, a relaxation. It's that, you just feel different after. That's what that terminology to me means, is it's just in the biological realm. And if you're deprived of that or you can't achieve that, it can intensify the desire to want to have. And so that's actually a good way to frame this too, babe. Well done on pointing this side out, because I think this is good to add in of when we frame it as this is the drive I'm really seeking, but what she's really struggling with is how do I include my husband into this too? Because now it's then relationally collaborative. Because most of us can think of masturbation as relationally exclusive.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be. A masturbatory life that you could have can be inclusive with a spouse. It can be a collaboration. Absolutely can be. And it's just having the conversations to see this as she even talked about it. We can have alternating focuses. That's a very common practice. I mean, in some sexual encounters, it's a you go, I go mentality, right? We focus on you, then we focus on me. That's the same thing she's proposing here. And so she's actually coming up with really good ways to address this.
Yeah. Hers just happens to be the day later rather than 5 minutes later or something.
Yeah, because that's the other thought I've got after hearing that. It's like, why not just right then? He's done. He's achieved orgasm. You're still percolating and raring.
Yeah, why does it have to be the next day?
have him hang out with you. Or if he wants to excuse himself, I'm not done, so I'm going to hang here a little bit longer.
Well, she wants him to be there.
Fair, but it's a boldness of being able to say, I'm going to seek things that I want to. That changes the dynamic between you. Because a lot of times when we soft pedal these things or we kind of dance around these things, it further intensifies the dynamic, because it makes him not have to address it either on how it could impact him. Because it's like, I don't want to have to face this. I don't want to have to be there to be a part of it. It feels awkward, because that can be exposing for husbands too. There are several husbands that could be like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. So now you got a systemic issue on both sides, much more front and center.
Well, at least now you know, you're not just sitting there wondering. So, I mean,
right. And so
being up front.
On the medical note, real quick, it's worth at least pointing out to be mindful of not catastrophizing this, because it could take a while. And maybe they don't get back to, this is the way sex has been, and now we got to figure out what sex can be together, because orgasm patterns and reliability changes across lifespans. It's just going to happen. Erections don't get as hard as they once were. Lubrication's not the same as it once was. There's all kinds of dynamics that just change over the lifespan. That is just an inevitability. My question is, can I be flexible enough to actually address it? Seek what it is I think would work and test some things out together, test some things out by myself, and then constantly keep a collaboration in mind. Because that's the goal. Because I'm hearing her say, how can I go after what it is I want while still trying to maintain and support my connection? And the trouble with that is it's scary to break through to that for a lot of us, to actually reveal more of me for something it is that I want. And so what are some ways that we can come up with parallel paths to a shared goal? Because I'm guessing he is on board with her orgasm too. I'm guessing he enjoys her achieving orgasm too. Because if he doesn't, and he doesn't care, that's a different dilemma.
Sure. But likely a safe assumption that he's on board with that.
Right. And so looking at this as this is about having to face the shame surrounding her own inherent sexual interest, path, orgasm, and what it takes to get there. Because if she has to take matters into her own hands, it's true. That's what we're talking about here. Is she okay letting that be known? I mean, I'm curious right now, if she can still achieve orgasm via masturbation, does he know that? Has that even been talked about?
I mean, that's a fair question.
Right? Because it's one of those, well, if she's able to, at least she's got the courage to keep exploring and figure things out for herself. Fantastic. Now it's the next step of, how do I bring the system into it? How do I be more upfront with it? And a lot of that, what keeps us in the way is I have these preconceived scripts of what I'm doing is wrong. It shouldn't have to be this way. We should be able to have sex this way, because we have all these shoulds that every single one of us has in life. And so if you start to look at that, what we're going to do in the extended content is here's some questions we can ask ourselves to really start to look at, how do I challenge some of these beliefs to see, are they serving me? Do I still really believe them or not? Have I evolved some? Because we're not going to try to push anything to where you need to agree with us on this. Because even if you decide masturbation is wrong, if you listen to this and you're like, I don't like this topic at all, and you've made it all the way through this far of the show, good job if you do. If you don't agree with us and you're still listening, fantastic. This is not about trying to get you on board with you need to be okay with it. It's about how do you solidify what you really believe and live accordingly. That's the goal. And so in the extended content, we'll jump into, here's some questions you can ask. So if you're not a member, come join us, smr.fm/academy.